In this episode, we have a special guest, Lisa Fraley. She is a legal coach, attorney, speaker, and #1 best-selling author of the new book, Easy Legal Steps. What's so amazing about what Lisa does is she helps entrepreneurs, online coaches, and small business owners get legally protected. And this is something that so many people struggle with. I work with a lot of health and wellness coaches, and there are so many questions and things that are just going unanswered when it comes to getting protected in the online space. So Lisa, first and foremost, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I would love for you to kind of give a little introduction and share with us how you got started as an attorney and in the online space.
Sure. So I started off, like a lot of people, sort of working in corporate America. I worked for a large law firm that was really cushy, and it was actually a really fabulous, prestigious firm that kind of people were knocking down the doors to work at. But after a while, I found that I was like seriously living on caffeine and sugar and just working myself to the bone. And I just wore myself out. I burned out. It wasn't a good fit anymore. And so I left, and I didn't know what I wanted to do because my whole life I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I worked with a life coach. And believe it or not, at that time, I thought, well, I actually want to be a life coach. So I went to life coaching school and also did some other things as well. But what happened was that led me to health coaching school to kind of get to the bottom of that sugar addiction I was dealing with when I was at the law firm. And then I was a health and life coach, and I hung up my shingle, and I was helping clients and doing corporate wellness seminars. And then my health coaching friends were like, Lisa, you were a healthcare attorney. You understand us as a coach. Why are you not helping us with the law? So that's what prompted me to go back into the law. And at first I was a little hesitant because I thought there was only one way to practice law. But as it turned out, I could actually infuse the law with love and spirituality and really try to lighten it up for people so it's not so scary. And I could write documents in plain English and actually make them colorful. And so I like to say that I sort of brought all parts of me together, hence the ampersand, the coach side and the lawyer side, to call myself a legal coach and holistic lawyer. And that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years.
I think what's so wonderful, one of the biggest things that I love about you is that you were a health coach and a life coach, and you just have this other perspective that a lot of other attorneys and people who are giving legal advice, they don't necessarily fully understand the online space and all the pieces that are required to really stay legally protected.
Yeah, they definitely don't teach you that in law school. And it wasn't until I actually became a coach and became a health coach and a life coach that obviously I knew and saw, it was sort of revealed to me what steps that most coaches or entrepreneurs or business owners need to put in place legally as they grow in their business, because I got it from the perspective of being a coach myself. That's kind of how it all sort of came together.
I know that you have this really fun twist on the way that you approach the idea of getting legally protected. So I would love for you to share a little bit about this, but it has to do with the chakras.
Right, that's
so
right.
Fill us in on how this works.
Well, most people don't really realize that the law, I believe, the law protects you in practical ways by covering your buns, right, and giving you written documents to fall back on, or LLCs or s-corps and entities to protect your assets. But it also, and I should say, it also has a spiritual side. And I believe that when you take legal steps, you're actually creating really strong boundaries and sort of energetic containers to hold and support your business as you go forward. And the more you get clear in creating strong boundaries energetically, I believe the more that you draw to you clients and people who also respect those boundaries. So that energetic side of the law is the part that most lawyers don't really talk about or even think about, or I don't even think even know about. And so what happened one day while I was sitting here in my office typing away on my laptop, I actually had this revelation, this awareness that I could align the seven most common steps that most entrepreneurs need as they grow in their business with the 7 chakras. or chakras in Sanskrit. And that gives dimension and color and order to the law in a way that really makes sense by aligning it with the soul-centered principles of the chakras. So people seem to just really resonate with that approach if they're a heart-centered entrepreneur.
It's just such a fun, unique twist on it. So what would be the base chakra, just to give someone, or the root chakra, just to give a little example?
Of course. So not everyone, but a lot of online entrepreneurs start out with at least a basic website. That's just one of the first steps they take, is to create a basic website. And I align the website disclaimer that you want to have on your website with the base layer of protection that you need with the root chakra, because it really is giving you some legal language. It's more than a couple sentences. It's usually a couple pages long, but it's designed to help people know what you do and what you don't do, so that they don't get confused or come after you. You get really clear about your boundary of who you are and what you do. And that also helps to create those clear boundaries we were talking about, to attract to you clients who will, and website visitors who will be respectful of your work and not misinterpret things that you say on your site.
Absolutely. Why do you think people will avoid looking at these pieces, avoid taking these steps?
Well, I think, the law is just, it can feel really scary. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel intimidating. It can feel like people just want to run under the covers and hide. It's not the first thing that people want to do. And I think for a lot of heart-centered entrepreneurs, they feel that it will somehow create or attract a lot of negative energy, because you're putting forth these like strong legal documents or these cold on documents out into the world. And I take a totally different approach. I really believe that putting basic legal steps in place actually is how you sort of level up your business. It's how you help engage in self-care for yourself and your business, because you are protecting and honoring this work that, and this business that you're working so hard to build. So I think it can just feel really scary and intimidating if you don't realize that it doesn't have to be so scary. And it can actually, I believe, even be kind of fun to kind of bring the spiritual side and the color and the love part into the law.
Absolutely. Well, when I first was introduced to you, it did feel like, where do I even begin? And it really is not as difficult once you have somebody who knows what they're talking about, who can kind of walk you through it. So for new coaches who are just beginning to take that plunge and signing on some one-on-one clients, what are the first legal documents that they should have in place?
Absolutely. Well, we already talked about the website disclaimer, which is the first base layer of protection for your website, even if you just have a basic website. But then, as you just mentioned, Jennifer, the next thing that people do is actually usually start working with one-on-one clients. And so for your one-on-one clients, I associate the client agreement that you need to use, a written client agreement, with the sacral chakra, to protect your income, your abundance, to help build trust, to create boundaries, and to support your relationships with your clients. And in your client agreement, you want to be really clear, and you want to spell out your policies around things like what's included in your program, what happens if someone misses a call, what happens if they miss a payment, what happens if you have a dispute or you're not seeing eye to eye, can either of you get out of the contract? It's really the place for you to be able to put all of your policies in one document, to create ease and to create clear communication with your clients, so you're both on the same page.
Absolutely. Those boundaries are essential when you're moving forward, and just having that up front really just takes the pressure off almost.
It does. And I think some people feel scared to use a client agreement, or scared to give a client agreement. And what I love to do to help them sort of reframe that is to think of it as a gift to your client. Because can you imagine, with all the emails that we send back and forth, and the sales pages and the program page and the welcome packet and like all this stuff floating around, it's so hard for a client to be like, now wait a minute, I can't come to my appointment on Thursday. Like, can I reschedule? Do I forfeit it? Do I lose it? Can I make it up? Do I have to give 24 hours notice? Like, how does that work? And what do I have to do? And if it was all just in one streamlined document, like, what an amazing gift, just to have everything in one place that they can always refer back to. That's the intention behind the client agreement, really, is to like you said, make it easier for both of you to have everything all spelled out in one place.
And you're really showing up as the coach and the leader when you come prepared with those things. And I think, like you were saying, it just brings a whole different energy to the relationship, where it does put everyone at ease, because they know exactly what is happening moving forward. And then I think it puts the coach in a really great position because you don't have to quote unquote feel bad about taking away a call from someone if they've
That's
missed it or
right.
canceled 4 times. You are
That's
really
right.
empowered.
Oh, I love hearing you say that and talking about being a leader of your business and being empowered, because when you already know that the client has agreed to that from the outset, it's so much easier, like you said, to be able to say to them, hey, I know just a reminder, as we agreed to in your client agreement, you can copy and paste the section from the agreement. Here's what you agreed to. And the other thing I always tell coaches is that it helps you have a firm boundary when you really, especially if you're working with a client that sort of tests your boundaries a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the other reason is because you as the coach can always make an exception to your own
Yes.
rules. Like, people don't realize if they have a no refund policy, they feel like that's really firm and scary. And sometimes with some clients, you do need to have a firm no refund policy. But with other people, maybe you do want to give them their money back or a partial refund, or there are exceptions if they're an extenuating circumstance. And you can always make that exception as the coach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love it you said that. Now, I do have a question in terms of that. If you give a partial refund, does that breach the contract or break the contract at all?
It's interesting because it's actually called waiving a
Mm-hmm.
clause that you would
Okay.
be enforcing. And because you're waiving it against you, it goes against you, then it's really hard for the other person to argue that that was not in their favor, because it
Yeah.
was in their favor. And usually most contracts, at least the way that I write them, there is a waiver clause that says, hey, if I decide to waive one section of the contract, it doesn't mean that I'm automatically waiving every other section of the contract. That's sort of standard contractual language for that
Yeah.
very reason, so that the client can be like, well, hey, you waived the missed call, so now you're going to waive the missed payment. You're like, no, I am honoring my payment
Yeah.
as planned.
No, that's so important because I think some people will try to write their own or try to
Yeah.
piecemeal it together, and then they end up missing little details like that because they don't have the experience, or even if they bring it to some kind of attorney who maybe doesn't really understand how things work online, there can be those holes. So I think it's so important to have those little details in place for sure.
And I'm glad you said that too, Jennifer, because unfortunately the little details are usually what end up causing the big problems.
Yeah. Yeah. The big stuff, we're like, oh, we got that, but it's the little
Right.
nuanced pieces that get overlooked. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So now I know with a lot of the ladies that I work with, they're beginning their one-on-one stuff, they've got their website going, and then the next step is usually, okay, well, I want to launch some kind of group program or some kind of online course. So
Yes.
what are some of the things that they need in place? I know in terms of protecting intellectual property, possibilities of being sued, especially because I work with mostly health coaches.
Sure.
And, like we were just saying, clients taking refunds or asking for all of that. So what are the pieces you need in place for a course?
Great question. So sometimes it depends on the type of course that you're offering, but in general, the most important thing that you want to have is what I call terms of use. Okay, terms of use. Sometimes people call them terms of service or sales terms or purchase terms, but terms of use, because they really set up how the client can use the content in the program. That's just the easiest way to remember it. And I align it with the throat chakra, because when you're doing a group program or online course, you're now really spreading your message far and wide and trying to reach lots of people, not just the one-on-one, which is where you use the client agreement, but the terms of use for your group program. Now, this document is the one that has a lot of language to protect the intellectual property of your course. Why? Because people in our group programs, for whatever reason, don't always feel as close of a connection to the coach. They show up for calls or they don't show up for calls. They have sort of more flexibility in how they participate in the course. And sometimes they just have more tenuous boundaries and can run off with your stuff without even intending it, or perhaps intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have language in that terms of use that basically says, hey, here's how you can use the content that you're receiving through this course. And hey, here's how you can't use the content that you're receiving in this course. And that, by putting your policies in writing, not only do you have some written language to fall back on if someone does run off, but you also are creating a really clear boundary energetically by saying, this is what works for me and this is what doesn't work for me. And the combination of those two create just a tighter container, a tighter document. The second thing you want to make sure is included is disclaimer language. Disclaimer language around what's included in your course, and the fact that just because they're taking the course, you don't want to be guaranteeing results for them. You want them to know it's information and education and that it can really help them. But if you're a health coach, you want to make sure they know that you're not giving medical advice or psychological advice or religious advice or legal or accounting or business advice. If you're a health coach who's also helping them get clear on their career, for example, because we know it's not all just about food. So those disclaimers are important to include, as well as things around your refund policy, how they can communicate with you. It's a really long, really thorough document because it's so important to have all of that language in there for your group programs.
Having a somewhere that it says how people can reach out and connect with you, creating that boundary, always going back to boundaries and that spiritual alignment and having it feel right. A lot of times people will want additional coaching without paying for it by just sending a bunch of inbox messages, as opposed to emailing and following protocol. So I think it's, again, so important to have that in place. Now, I know you said that if people take your intellectual property, you can have it protected in that document. What would you do if someone actually took your intellectual property, and how would you go about having them stop using it?
Exactly. And just for people who might not know what we mean by intellectual property, for this part of the conversation, we're talking about the content in your program. So like your program guide or your videos or your audios or your PDFs or whatever it is that you're giving them through your course, recordings, like whatever. So what happens is if someone does swipe your stuff, I always say first, Jennifer, to assume innocence. And a lot of people will scratch their head and be like, wait, Lisa, what? You're a lawyer? What do you mean assume innocence? But here's the thing. A lot of times when people are doing research to create their own course or program, sometimes they might copy or paste something you've written for inspiration, but then later they come back and they may not even realize that they didn't change it. They just copy and paste it into something, and they really don't mean to be doing that. And I just, my whole theme and my approach to the law is really starting from a place of love first, because you can always pull out the mama lion and get stronger later, but starting from a place of love and kindness and treating people how you want to be treated is just, I think, a better way to be operating in the world. So start first with kindness, okay? And you can reach out to that person by email and say, hey, I know you're in my course, and I just noticed that on your new sales page, you happen to have a paragraph that's almost exactly like my sales page. And one thing you might not remember is that when you signed up for the course, you agreed to my terms of use, which just said that, to be sensitive to not copying information in my program or on my sales page. And I know you may not have meant to, I know it might've been an accident, but I just love to request to ask you to take that down or change that language right away. And please just email me back and let me know that you've done that. Like, I totally understand how that can happen, but please just go ahead and take that down.
Yes.
If you give someone an out, a lot of times they're horrified, first of all, that they A, did it, and then B, you saw it, and C, like they just never would want that to happen to save their life. And often people, you give them the out to graciously say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, and then problem solved, done. Because the focus is on the end result, which is you want them to stop using your stuff, okay? Now, there are some bad apples out there who are like, no, I can do whatever I want, come after me. And you're thinking, seriously? Really? Like, really? But if that's the case, then you can be more firm and you can send a cease and desist letter. You can quote parts of your terms of use. You can even go farther and have a lawyer get involved. You can bring a suit or a small claim suit if you want. There are lots of things that you can do to assert and protect your work. But the fact that you are standing up for yourself, whether you do it with kindness or more firmness later, that's half the battle right there, is having the courage to do that and to get clear about the boundaries. Because if that situation happens, I guarantee you, well, I guess I don't guarantee you, but I highly offer for your consideration that it might not happen as often in the future, because now you've created a clear boundary.
I think it's so wonderful that you're really beginning this process with leading with kindness, because man, there's so many people who I've worked with who really struggle. They're like, I know I want to get on live video or want to create this course, but it's so similar to all of these other people and the content that they've put out, and I don't want to copy. That's not their intention. They're just trying to get their footing as a coach and figure out their own voice. And so I really do agree with you on that it's not intentional 90% of the time. It really does pay off to lead with that kindness.
And to your beautiful point, Jennifer, like So much of when people are trying to get inspiration from others, like I just always invite people, like I'm sure I know you teach them this too, like tune into your own intuition and speak from your own heart and your own voice, because it will have so much more power anyway. Don't
Mm-hmm.
worry if it looks exactly like the way you're supposed to do it, or don't worry if it sounds different than the way the leading coach out there does it. Like use your voice. And the more you tap into your own voice, the more you're not even going to be putting yourself in a situation where people think you might be copying them anyway.
Absolutely. Now, I know in terms of, copying and being protected, one of the other big questions that we get a lot is in terms of trademarks. And I
Yeah.
know you've said this is something that maybe you want to look at a little bit later on, but in terms of trademarking your company name, your logo, and then even your course, what do you recommend in terms of that?
Great question. Trademarking comes up all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it is such an amazing right that the government gives us to be able to gain the use to words or logo or images for a certain context for 10 years. And then you can renew it again and again and again. It's an amazing, I align it with the crown chakra because it's such a crowning achievement to actually have a trademark. And so people will ask all the time, like, when is the right time to trademark and what should I be trademarking? And so what I really encourage people to do is when you are far enough along in your business that you have a brand, a recognizable brand that you really are passionate about, like you'd be heartbroken if someone had the same business name as you did, and that it has a lot of potential to be used in the future. So it's not something you're going to be changing next year. Like you want it to have some longevity, and it's really tied to your profit. It has to be tied to something you're selling on or through your website. If you have those three things in place, then you can trademark things like your business name or your tagline or your program name, your logo. I highly recommend focusing on things like your names versus an image like a logo, because if you change your logo in the future, even if you change one color, or you change the font, and you actually trademark that logo, you don't have the trademark protection of that logo anymore. You have to do a new trademark because you've changed your logo. And online entrepreneurs, we like to change things all the time on our website and our designs
Yeah.
and our logos. So stick with the words is my first recommendation. But it's something that I encourage people to do farther along, just because you want to make sure that you aren't going to be changing it down the road quickly, because it is an investment of time and energy, and it's a long process, and it's a serious thing. And just set yourself up so that you'll be using it well into the future if you can.
Yeah, that's very good advice. One day we're like, I'm going to name my business Fierce Fitness. And the next day, completely over it, on to the next. Actually, I want to be a life coach. And then the next, actually, I want to be a business coach. Yeah.
And one other thing just to add to that is, for a lot of people, trademarking is really one area that I recommend you have a lawyer help you with.
Mm,
It's possible to do it on your own, but here's the thing with trademarking. It's more nuanced than people realize. And so I have a lot of clients who will come to me and they'll say, Lisa, I just went ahead and did it on my own, and then it got denied by the trademark office, like help, or maybe it had an office action, which is sort of an objection by the trademark office, and they're like, I don't know what to do. But if we had just worked together from the outset, we would have done a trademark search to see if there were any potential problems, and we could have kind of gone into it differently to try to get a better
mm-hmm.
response. So a lot of documents, I have do-it-yourself legal templates for your website disclaimer and your client agreement and all sorts of different areas of the law, but those you can do on your own using templates or documents prepared by a lawyer who gets what you do. But for trademarking, it's really worth having a lawyer do a trademark search, then do the application, just so you aren't wasting your time, money, or energy.
Absolutely. One of the questions that we hear a lot is, people, they go through these certification programs or schooling, or maybe they're in network marketing and they don't have any certifications, and they want to create their own courses and do their own content or coaching. And they want to be careful about what they can and cannot share or
Right.
produce based on, their level of education. What is your best advice on this?
So right now in the United States, and I can't speak for around the world, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and all the information we're sharing today is really intended to just be general to kind of help guide you along. But in general, as of right now, health coaching is not a regulated industry in the United States. So you aren't required at the moment to have any sort of certification to be a health coach or a life coach. It's good to have it because you do want to be trained clearly to know how to coach effectively and to hold the space for your clients. But you aren't required to. So a lot of the work around coaching, a lot of the comfort around certifications really comes from that person's own comfort level, standing into the space and holding themselves out with the title of a coach. There are a lot of health coaches who come from licensed professions, like they are doctors or nurse practitioners or massage therapists or chiropractors. Like they already have licensure and they have training in the human body, certainly in many ways. But sometimes they still want to have a health coaching certification or to have a life coaching certification or whatever. That's a great idea. It's a great thing to do. But right now in the US, you're not required to have a license or a particular certification to hold yourself out as a health coach or life coach.
Interesting. So there was one student actually that asked Heather, she said, I have a BA in alternative health, and because of all the red tape, I'm not sure what I'm legally allowed to say. How can I give alternative over-the-counter swaps and ideas without stepping out of my scope of the practice?
Okay, so for all health coaches and non-licensed medical practitioners or non-licensed registered dietitians or licensed nutritionists, you want to stay away from certain areas no matter what state you're in, okay? So if you are not a doctor or medical professional who's allowed to do these things, you do not want to diagnose, treat, prevent, cure, or heal any disease, condition, or medical issue, okay? That gets tricky because a lot of health coaches are like, but my program can help prevent cancer, or my program can help prevent osteoporosis or whatever. And you just want to be careful to not make a medical claim that your work or your program will actually cause a certain medical effect or condition to be improved. So instead, you want to do things like saying, this program will help reduce the symptoms of, or will help support you as you engage in your own self-healing, rather than saying you're going to heal them or your program will heal them in any way. So those are medical claims, and health coaches are not allowed to make medical claims no matter what state you're in. I think that's really important to express. And then the other half of that too, Jennifer, is that if you're a health coach, you do need to know what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do in the state where you live. And this can get a little complicated sometimes, but you want to be very clear. In some states in the US, the laws are very restrictive. And we often refer to these as red states or orange states based on actually the website nutritionadvocacy.org, which has a beautiful, colorful map of the United States on the home page. And it shows by visual representation, if you're in a red or orange colored state, then your laws are really restrictive. And you have to be very cautious in doing individualized work with clients where you're gathering information from your client and providing individualized food plans back to them. That's highly regulated in those states, and you need to be highly aware of what you can and can't do there. If you're in a yellow or green state, you have a lot more leeway. You can do health histories, you can gather information, you can give people quizzes, you can do functional medicine testing in a lot of states. You can gather information and come back out and give them a complete personalized protocol in those states. You have a lot more freedom. But in the red and orange states, you really want to stick to doing more things like done for you programs, taking people through group programs. The one-on-one part is just where it gets a little bit dicey as to what you can and can't do.
This is such great advice, such great information, and I will definitely link up that website in the show notes as well. Now, for women who are in network marketing, who maybe don't necessarily have or need these legal pieces, what are the limitations that they have in terms of what they can offer people?
Yeah. It's interesting that you should say that, because even if you're in network marketing or you sell supplements or essential oils or you offer some other product, you still have to follow a lot of this as well, actually. You can't make medical claims yourself. So you can't say that your product will treat, prevent, cure, heal, or diagnose any particular ailment. So if you sell essential oils, you want to talk about the benefits of the oils, not that they're going to help alleviate some sort of health issue, for example. And if you're an MLM marketer too, you still want to have a website disclaimer on your website. Or, you know, a lot of MLM websites now don't let you link your MLM website to your own business website directly. They want you to have an interim step, because too many health coaches, unfortunately, not knowing it, were making medical claims that were putting those companies in jeopardy around FDA regulations. So, for example, you could have on your website, and I do this on my website actually, hey, I love, you know, taking healthy vitamins and supplements. If you want to know more about the brands I take or offer, please click here. And then that takes you to an interim opt-in page or a way to contact you. And then they can reach out to you. You respond back with an autoresponder linking them to your MLM page.
That's great. So if somebody was to put up these claims accidentally, they didn't know better, and they said, I'm going to help heal your gut health, what would be the consequence of that?
There could be several consequences, and it depends again on the state where you're located. But the MLM company could certainly come back to you and basically, I mean, it depends on what their terms and conditions say of their specific companies, but some are getting really strict and saying they can take you out of being an associate for them or whatever. So you want to pay a lot of attention to it because we don't want to mislead people. And even if you're not intending to mislead anyone, you guys, we all know that there are so many clients out there who are just like desperate for something to help them with their situation, and they want an answer, and they want a cure, and they want to be healed, and all of this. But really, you know, as health coaches, the philosophy is that the client heals themselves. We just offer tools to help them with their own healing. So, you know, you don't want to have anyone thinking that you're making a medical claim. You know, the worst case scenario, which is not necessarily likely to happen, but is that, you know, certainly someone could say that you're engaging in the unlicensed practice of medicine because you're making medical claims. It's not highly likely to happen, but you just don't even want to get into that energetic space. We want to keep people focused on the benefits and how these things can positively help them rather than what they can cure or heal.
I love this, Lisa. This is gold. I know so many people who are listening to this right now are just having light bulb moments.
Great. That makes me happy.
No,
That's why I do this work.
Yes, it's definitely needed. So now I know one other thing that we really wanted to touch on was this whole idea of LLCs, s-corps. How do I file, and when am I ready for that? So when should a newbie maybe look into getting an LLC?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked about that. So let's talk business entities for a second. So first of all, right now, hanging out your shingle, seeing clients, you are considered a sole proprietor, okay? That's what you already are, which is great. But what that means is that you and your business are one and the same. There's nothing separating you from your business. From a liability standpoint or a tax standpoint, you're just one and the same. That makes things really easy, but it also does set you up for some exposure, because if something happens in your personal life, then all your business income is at risk, and vice versa. If something happens in your business life, then all your personal income is at risk. Now, if you're just starting out, you may want to have an LLC right away if you're in a certain situation. I don't encourage, like a lot of lawyers will say, oh, you have a business, you need an LLC right this minute. I don't personally take that approach. I think I'd rather have you put legal documents in place to prevent you from being sued, or at least slow down the ability or the likelihood that you might be sued, like your website disclaimer and your client agreement and your privacy policy and your terms of use, some of the things we've talked about. Then create your LLC. However, if you're someone who right now has a lot of personal assets, like you have a home that's pretty well paid off, or cars that are paid off, or a second home, or a boat, or inheritance, or 401k, or insurance benefits, like all sorts of things that are already assets that you want to protect, it might make sense for you to do an LLC right away. Otherwise, as I mentioned, I want you to protect yourself legally at each stage of your business as you grow and expand. And then I align the LLC and s-corp actually with your third eye chakra. So it's the sixth step, because you always know when it's time to grow pro and step up to that next level of business, usually after you have quite a robust business built with your group programs, online courses, one-on-one programs. You have a lot to lose, in other words. That's when it's time to go ahead and create your LLC or s-corp. And often for people, I say that for LLCs, this is a ballpark figure. Work with your own accountant, no matter where you are, big or small in your business, work with an accountant. But I tell people a lot of times, if you're making about $50,000 in your business or so, and I spell all this out actually in my book, Easy Legal Steps, like this is all spelled out in great detail. So if this is going really fast for people, they can get it more detailed there. But $50,000 or so is a good ballpark figure to create an LLC. And then when your income reaches $100,000 or so, that's a good time to have an S-corp, just to give you a sense of where you might want to be. But be sure to talk with your own accountant and look at your own financial situation.
That's great to have those markers. And just to kind of clarify for those people who maybe are new to some of these concepts, essentially what you're saying, Lisa, is that if you are a sole proprietorship, everything that you own and have can be touched if something goes awry in your business.
Correct.
However, if you have an LLC or an S-corp, it separates you from your business.
Correct. That's right. Great summary. It separates you so that you're you and everything in your personal life is you, and your income and your assets in your business are your business assets. So if something happens in your business and your business goes under, or someone sues you, or you have a creditor coming after you, they can't get your personal assets, and vice versa. If you have something going on in your personal life, they can't get your business asset. Now you have to follow some rules for that so that you aren't mixing, commingling is the word we use, commingling the two. But in general, you want to keep them very separate and have separate bank accounts, separate checking accounts, all of that, separate business records, so that you can get that protection. And it helps people just feel a lot more comfortable knowing that they're not putting their business at risk, or they're not really putting their house or their car or their 401k or whatever at risk.
This is so good. And I know one of the ladies in our Health Coaches Make Bank Facebook group, she had asked, as far as a network marketer, since we do work a lot of ladies who are in network marketing or who are partnered with a product, at what point should they be setting up these pieces? And she had shared that she just got one, but she's like, I don't even know when to get my team on board. They always ask me, I'm not sure. So when should a network marketer, somebody who's partnered with a product company, start looking into an LLC?
Well, first of all, congratulations on getting your LLC. That's great. Whether it was the ideal time for you or not, congratulations, because now you have it. You can't go wrong by having it. Let me just put it that way. And I usually use the same ballpark figures. If your income is about $50,000 or so in your business, from your network marketing income or any other income that you are generating on the business side, not from you or your spouse or partner's income, but just your business, that's a great ballpark figure for you too, because again, it goes back to what do you have to lose? If you're less than $50,000, of course you have a really nice, respectable business and you're growing and you're expanding and you have some things to lose, don't get me wrong. But once you're at that 50,000 mark, like you're really on your way to moving towards a six-figure business or having a substantial amount of income to really lose. And that's a good point for you too. But again, make sure you're talking with your accountant.
Yeah. And then in terms of taxes, are there some benefits as well to establishing an LLC or S-corp?
Yeah, great question. So here's the deal with the LLC. The LLC is really designed to create this separate container we talked about to protect and separate your assets. It's also designed on the energetic side, I believe, to help you feel like, wow, I really have an established business. And it ups your level of professionalism and it ups your level of credibility. From a tax standpoint, the way it works with your LLC is that your income from your LLC is still reported through your personal tax form on something called Schedule C. Okay, right now, as of today, they call it a Schedule C. So that gets attached as part of your 1040 that gets sent off in April to the government. So your LLC money has to be reported on its own form, but it's kind of gets reported at the same time your personal income gets reported. With an S-corp, it's different. An S-corp, which stands for S Corporation, which we should say really stands for subchapter S of the Internal Revenue Code. That's where the S comes from. But I like to say S. This is not legal. This is just,
you guys are all going to be tested on this later.
I know. We're trying to make it as easy as possible.
No, it's so good. I love it.
Think of S meaning small. This is not a legal term. This is just Lisa's term. S meaning small. So that's the one that you would want if you're creating corporation. So, because it's for small, like intended for entrepreneurs and people under 100 shareholders. So the S corporation is a corporation. It's like a real corporation. And you serve as the shareholder and the director and the president and the secretary. Like that's you. You can have a one-person corporation. Well, here's the deal. When you're a corporation, even as an S-corp, you have to pay your taxes 4 times a year. Like corporations pay their taxes on the corporate tax schedule at the end of every quarter. It's also more complicated, and you definitely need to have an accountant help you, because what's happening with an S-corp, this is going to sound crazy, but basically your corporation is sort of hiring you to be the employee of your own business, which means that you have to have payroll for yourself. Now, you might remember working in your corporate job where every 2 weeks you'd get your check stub on Friday, where there was a direct deposit to your bank account. You don't have to do all that typing out the check stub thing, but you do have to declare salary, you have to pay yourself, and you have to pay taxes 4 times a year. So it's a much more complicated process. The taxes are different, whether you're an LLC or an S-corp, and the amount of time, how often you pay your taxes is different. So it is a bigger responsibility and bigger expense to actually have an S-corp, which is why I recommend waiting till you're at about that 100,000 mark, because otherwise you're going to be paying your accountant more, and it doesn't always give you the best benefit to do it for less. You can, but just recognize it's more bang for your buck if you're making more money. The other thing about the S-corp though is that you do have more flexibility around declaration of your salary and your distributions is what it's called, that you take from the business. They're taxed differently. So you get to decide what your salary is, and you get to decide what your distributions are from the business that you take out, and they're taxed differently. So you have more flexibility. You still have to pay taxes on the whole amount. So you have more flexibility when it comes to your taxes as an S-corp. And that's one of the benefits why people actually have S-corp.
Such good stuff. I know that this is going to be new for a lot of people who are listening right now, but if you're in that place where you're just starting to get these pieces in place, you can actually go and head over to Lisa's website, lisafraley.com, and she has a lot of great content, as well as her book, Easy Legal Steps. And she's got a lot of great do-it-yourself legal templates that you can check out as well, so that you can start getting a lot of these pieces in place.
Perfect. Well said, Jennifer. Yeah, because it is, I know this is new for a lot of people, and in each of these legal steps that we're talking about, please don't get overwhelmed. Like, don't let this scare you. Don't let this worry you.
Mm-hmm.
As health coaches, most of us come from a place where we like to be planners. We like to know what's coming. We like to be aware. And the gift of a podcast is you can go back and listen to it again. You can listen to this section again. You can listen to this whole podcast again. You really can, you don't have to know it all right now. Just know it's coming. That's why I think about when you get to about $50,000 in your business, you might say to yourself, oh, I remember Jennifer and Lisa talking about that LLC thing. I should find out about that. Or if you're at 100,000, you say, oh yeah, I remember kind of about that S-corp thing. I should find out about that. That's all you need to know today. It's okay. You can come back and get the information through the book or the website or Jennifer or me, just whenever you're ready. And they can get the book, which is very huge amount of information written in plain English and easy to understand, but like for less than $15, it's the information from my legal course, basically, that they can get at lisafraley.com/book. And also I have free blog posts, like you said, free information on my website, and can find me on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Well, Lisa, this was absolutely incredible. Like I said before, I know that there's going to be so many light bulb moments for ladies, and I think it's just so beautiful how you really break this down and make it so digestible. You just take the stress and take the headache out of approaching all of these legal elements of your business. So thank you so, so much for coming on today and sharing your gifts.
Well, and Jennifer, thank you for making it so easy. The work that you're doing to help health coaches build their business and feel confident and really feel like they're an empowered entrepreneur is so important. So thank you for the work that you do. And for all the health coaches who are listening, like you guys, we just all grow our businesses one step at a time, and you put the legal steps in place exactly the way you grow your business, one step at a time. So having this information is designed to help you from not feeling so stuck and scared of the law, but to really help you feel confident and empowered to take steps as you reach each of those milestones in growing your business. So I'm just honor the work that you do. Thank you for helping to change people's lives. And thank you for having me today as a part of your podcast. I'm really honored.
Amazing. So Lisa, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.